Right, so we're up to Chav Hey Amud Aleph. So that's 25a, in the middle of the Gemara. And the Gemara is actually discussing about the various laws as it relates to the time of passing and the laws of mourning and the laws of Kriya, the various different things that we're talking about. So we're up to over here on 25a. Kinoch Nafshe de Rab Safra. The Gemara relates when Rab Safra passed away, um, Loikoru Rabbonon Alai. The Rabbonon, the rabbis, they did not do Kriya for him. He was a known rabbi, but these particular Rabbonon did not do Kriya because they thought they had not personally learned anything from him. Amri, what is they said? Why did they not write? What they said was, Loi Gamrinon Minei. We didn't learn anything from him. He's basically not our teacher. We didn't learn. He didn't teach us anything. Amar Luhu Abaye. So Abaye says to them, he says, look at the language that it says, and you'll see that what you are saying is wrong. He says, Mitanya, does it then say Harav Shemes, which would mean the rabbi, which means it was your rabbi dies, and then you have to do Kriya. It says Chocham Shemes, a sage that dies. Chocham Shemes Tanya. So you don't have to be a student of this rabbi in order to do Kriya. It's sufficient that he was a sage. So that's number one. Besides that, he says, V'oid, in addition to that, even though you may have not learned directly from him, but his statements and his teachings were actually in the Beis Medrash, were part of the curriculum. They were part of the teachings that the people learned there. So he says, so this other argument that Abaye said to those Rabbonon, Kol yoima shmaitso befumin. Every day, his teaching is in our mouth. And therefore, Rashi says, V'havi kimande gamrinon minei. It's as if we had learned from him directly, because we are talking about it, even though we may not actually, you may not have physically learned from him directly, but still he can be considered your teacher because you are always quoting and speaking of his teachings. Further, the Gemara says, Sovur. So they said, okay, so we missed out. So they thought, Madahaba Habe. What happened, happened, which means they didn't do Kriya. So there's no way, so that's it. They can't do Kriya anymore. Rashi Madahaba Habe. Oh, Yildelei Koru B'Shas Miso, since they didn't render their clothes during the time of Misa, because they didn't think that that they needed to do it, but they didn't do it. Sulekari, so you can't do it anymore. But he told them, no, they're wrong again. Amalu Abaye, so Abaye said to them, Tanina, we already learned this in Abraisa. So over there it says, Chocham kol zman sha'oiskin behesped chayovim likreya. A sage, as long as you're still occupied in the eulogy, you are obligated to render your the garment. So the fact that it didn't take place during the time of Misa, but since we are still eulogizing him, it is fitting to render your garments. So again, Sovar lemikra la'alter. So they were going to do the Kriya immediately because he says you can do it, lemikra la'alter, below hesped, without the eulogy. Amar lahu Abaye. So Abaye said to them, no, Tanya, we learned it. Chochom kavod behespeda. The sage, the honor is when you eulogize him. You can't just go ahead and do kriya like that in the middle of nowhere. The kriya has to be done during the time of the eulogy when you're warmed up, when you're sort of emotionally charged. That's when you do the kriya. So in any event, first they thought that you need to be a student specifically, and he told them no, a sage is enough. Two, he told them that you are students regardless, even if you didn't learn directly, because we're constantly quoting the statements. And then he told them you can't just go do kriya, you have to also have a eulogy. And at the time of the eulogy, that's when you do the kriya. The Gemara continues. You want to say something?
Aren't there certain months that you don't eulogize? Like,
Huh?
aren't there certain times of the year that you don't eulogize?
Yes, there are. Yeah. So,
So would you, but you would still do Kriya.
oh, you mean if you do well, the eulogy is a time that you get emotionally charged. That's what I say. That's why even when you can't do the eulogy, you'll do it when the time of burial. You'll do it, when the coffin is lowered. You do it at a time when there's an
Emotions are high.
emotional, there's something emotional. So
Okay.
it's a good question. So maybe you don't have the actual kriya, you don't have the actual eulogy, but you will still have opportunities to be when you're emotionally sort of charged. The Gemara continues with another story. The Gemara says, "Kinoch nafshe de Rav Huna." When Rav Huna died, Savur le'oy suvi sefer Torah al Puriya. They thought they wanted to place a sefer Torah on his bed. I didn't think they didn't want to bury the sefer Torah, but they wanted to put a sefer Torah there. What was the idea behind it? What was the benefit of putting a sefer Torah? So Rashi explains, "Lo suvi sefer Torah Puriya v'loymar kiyem zeh masha kosuv bezeh." This one, which is Rav Huna, he fulfilled that which was written in the Torah. We have a similar idea that by when Yosef's bones were carried in the coffin while they were traveling in the desert, they were also carrying at the same time the luchas. And over there, the Gemara says that they said that this one fulfilled what's written in the luchos, the other one fulfilled. So there's something about saying that this person fulfilled. But we have a problem because you're not allowed to put a Sefer Torah together where you sit. The Gemara also said, Amrlu Rav Chizda. So Rav Chizda said to them, Milsa de Bechaya lois virale. Something which during his lifetime he does not hold of it. Hashto leikom le'avid le. Now we should get up and do it. Meaning, even during the lifetime, you can't have a Sefer Torah sitting, or for that matter, a Chumash, or any of the holy books, to be on the same seat that you're sitting. So if during his lifetime we didn't do it, so now we should go ahead and put a Sefer Torah in the same place. It's not respectful. We don't do that. Now, where do we see this? The Omer Rav Tachlifa. Rav Tachlifa says about Rav Huna himself. Ano chazise le Rav Huna. I've seen Rav Huna the boy lemesev apuria. He wanted to sit down on the bed. Have a monach sefer Torah lay, but there was a sefer Torah laying on the bed, and he wanted to lay down. So what did he do? V'chof kada ara. So he took a jug and he tilted it, put it on the ground. V'oisiv Sefer Torah ilovik. And then he put the Sefer Torah on top of that kad, because he didn't want to sit on the place where there's a Sefer Torah. So, Alma, what do we see from there? Kosovar Asur Leishev Agabi Mito She Sefer Torah Munach Aleha. That you're not allowed to sit on a Sefer Torah uh, on a bed where there's a Sefer Torah laying on it. So he's basically saying, how do you want to put a Sefer Torah on the coffin, on the bed of the deceased? You can't do that because you see, Rav Huna himself would not sit in a place even during his lifetime. The Gemara says what happened with that bed that Rav Huna was on. Lo havenofik purya mibaba. It couldn't make it through the door. That bed that he was laying at was too wide for the entrance of the house. They couldn't take him out on the bed. La havenofik purya mibaba, Zakt Rashi. The zutar have baba. The doorway was small, so they didn't know how to get the bed out. So the Gemara said, "Sovar lishal l'shuli derech kagin." They had an idea to hook it up with a chain and lift it up through the roof. I guess there was an opening over there to take it out through derech kagin by way of the roof. So Amalu Rav Chizda, so Rav Chizda says to them, so he was constantly correcting them. So Rav Chizda said, Hogamirna minei, but we learned from Rav Chizda himself that Chocham kavoidei derech Pesach, that a Chocham, the honor of the Chocham is to take him through the door, not to drag his bed out through the roof. So that's not honorable. Okay, so what are we going to do with him? We can't get the bed through. We can't take him through the roof. So how are we going to bury him? So the Gemara says, "Sovar lashnuyi mepuriya lepuriya." So they had an idea that we're going to change him from one bed to the other bed. They had made a narrower bed over there. They're going to move him from his bed that he was laying out to the smaller bed. So Rashi mepuriya lepuriya. Lisito b'mito achrito katano sheteitzi derech Pesach, to put him on another narrower bed that will make it through the door. Just a second. But they wanted to change him and put him on a different bed so that they can get him through the door. Amar Rav Chizda, again, Rav Chizda tells them, this is what we learned from him, from Rav Huna, that Chacham kavoidei b'mito rishonim. The sage, the honor is the first bed, the bed that he was laying on. That's the bed you should bury him. The Omar Rav Yehuda Marav. But Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, where do we have a source that a sage, the honor is to keep him in the first bed? Shenamar, the pasuk says over there, the pasuk is talking about how they brought the Orim to Yerushalayim. So it says, "Vayarkivu es Aron halikim el agola chadosha." They had the godly ark ride on a new wagon. So what does the new wagon mean there? El agola chadosha. That new wagon, which is oisa agola sheshikruhu plishtim bo. That was that new wagon that the plishtim sent the Torah to uh, to them. ובאויסה הגולה הביאו דוד מבית אבינודב לעיר David. And that was the wagon that David brought the Oren from the house of Avinodov to the city of David. So you see that he used that same Agola because they didn't want to change one Agolas. That shows to us that it should be. Now he calls it Agola Chadosha, but it was Agola Chadosha before when he brought it over there. Not an Agola Chadosha now. Um, um, I think that's the meaning over there. But in any event, so how are they going to get him out? So the Gemara says, Paroish Baba, they broke the door. Bavkuah, they took him out. So they had no choice. Kept on saying that you can't do other ways. Paroish Baba, sagt Rashi, Shavru HaPesach Virchivuah. They broke the door and they widened it. And that's how they got him out. Gemara says now, what was the eulogy? They eulogized him. Pasach Alei Rabbi Abba. So Rabbi Abba started off the eulogy for Rav Huna. He says, "Roi hoya Rabbeinu shatishra olav shchina." Our teacher was worthy; he was fit that the divine should rest upon him. And the only reason why he did not have the divine rest upon him, Elo shebavel gormaloi. The fact is that he lived in Bavel, in Iraq, in Babylonia. She'ein shchina shoyde b'chutz la'aretz. There is no Shekhinah resting in outside of Eretz Yisrael, so that's why he didn't have the Shekhinah. Meaning, in essence, he deserved to have the Shekhinah, but as a rule, there's no Shekhinah Chuslav. So basically, he's trying to say how great he was, that he could have had the Shekhinah, but he didn't have the Shekhinah because it was in Babylonia. Frag die Gemara, Mosif Rab Nachman bar Chizda. So Rab Nachman, the son of Chizda, or Va'amrila, other people say Rav Chonon bar Chizda, that it was done by, the question was asked by Chonon bar Chizda. It says in Yecheskel, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Gimel, it says, Hoya Hoya Dvar Hashem el Yecheskel ben Buzi HaKoyim. There was God's words to Yecheskel, the son of Buzi the Kohen, and it says it was in the land of the Kasdim. Now, the land of the Kasdim was not Eretz Yisrael. So how did he get the Shekhinah over there? So, Topach le Abua Pesandale. So the father banged him with his slipper. He banged him. One of the sons, it was either one of the two, depending on the way, it was either Chonon or it was Nachman, but one of his sons. So Rashi, Topach le Abua Rav Chizda besandalo with his shoe. Shatofach loy Rav Nachman al sandaloi. He banged with Rav Nachman on his shoe. So it's not. He didn't use his shoe to bang. Fakert. He put his foot like if someone on the table. You want to tell him something. So you touch their foot underneath the table, trying to tell them something. Rashi says, like somebody touches your friend's foot quietly, you don't want to see anybody correcting you. So that those who are standing around the bed shouldn't hear it. They don't want to say anything. So he was just giving him a sign. The Rav Huna Some mitrosid Rav Huna Cain, maybe I'm not sure what the this maybe it's Al Kainikos and the. So it's like something you want to tell somebody something and you want it to be a secret. So you give him a nudge under the table. You bang his foot. So to tell him, what did he tell him? Amalei, he said to him, Lava mineloch, didn't I tell you? Loit tidred alma. Don't burden the people, the world. Don't burden. Don't start with your, I guess, with his drushes over there. He was telling them from the pasuk, that uh, that the pasuk that he quoted from Yecheskel. That he asking the question, he says, "Don't trouble people with your challenges." My hoyo, shekvar hoyo. Look, you say in the pasuk. What does it mean when it says hoyo hoyo dvar Hashem? Why does it mean hoyo? Hoyo means it was in the past, meaning shehoyo kvar. Happened in the past, no longer. Koloimar, since the pasuk itself says hoyo, that was an exception. That was at that time. Meaning shoyo kvar koloimar, haishaita have that was at that time and not more. That's one opinion. There's another shot Rashi brings down, but yes, others say shoyo kvar be'eretz Yisrael, that he was already in Eretz Yisrael. Shohoyo kvar means he was already in Eretz Yisrael. Shashorzel of Ruach HaKodesh, so he had Ruach HaKodesh, so then it wouldn't be a problem because he was already in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so let's continue with the story. They finally got him out of the house, and they eulogized him. And Kaskul Hassam. So they brought him up to Eretz Yisrael. They brought the bed, that big bed that couldn't make it through the door, and they broke down the door. They brought him up to Eretz Yisrael. Kaskul also, when they brought him up there, Eretz Yisrael l'koyve. So he says, why did people bother to bury in Eretz Yisrael? So Rashi, shekol ha-nigbar shom, nigbar b'lo chet. Anybody who's buried in Eretz Yisrael, has been buried without sin, has no sin. Shanamar. The pasuk says, "Ha'om hayoshabo," the people that sit there, nesu oven, carried of sin, lifted of sin, meaning he has no sin. So I guess people who didn't have any sin, they carry them to bury them in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so when they brought him to Eretz Yisrael, so they went and they told to Rabami and Rabasi who were in Eretz Yisrael, Ravuna came. Telling him Ravuna came. They're telling Rabami and Rabasi. Now he didn't realize, he thought Ravuna came alive, not that he came to be buried there. Amru. So they responded, Kabin and Hossam, when we were there by Rabami and Rabasi, Lo havilei lidluya we were embarrassed, he says. Rashi says, they didn't raise their head higher than him because he was like a known scholar. Let's do Rashi. We shouldn't have hung our heads higher than him, which means to hang our head to Adam Choshev Hoya. He was an important person. And we were embarrassed to raise our heads in front of him. But Hashtasin and Hocho, and now he's come in also Basrin. comes after us. Uh, in other words, we came first and Rav Huna came afterwards. So they were kind of surprised, I guess. Amaru Lahu. So they told him, no, what they said is, Arenebo. His coffin came, but he didn't come. It's not him. So the Gemara Rabami and Rabasi Nofu. Rabami and Rabasi, they came out from the Beis Medrash to go to the funeral. Rabbi Ilo and Rabbi Chanina, lo nofu. But Rabbi Ilo and Chanina, they did not go out. They stayed to continue learning. So the Gemara, Ikod Amri, there's another version that says that Rabbi Ilo nofak and Rabbi Chanina lo nofak. Rabbi Ilo went out and Rabbi Chanina did not go out. So the Gemara, what's the reasoning behind what they did? The nofak my time. What's the reason for those that did go out? The Tanya, because we learned in a Braisa. Why did they go out for the funeral? If you have a coffin that is being transported from place to place, so it started off in Babylonia and is going to Eretz Yisrael. So if you have a coffin going from place to place, we still apply all the laws of original Aimdim Olav B'Shura. You would stand on a line to be Menachem Babel. Those are the blessing that they used to say for the mourner and also the comforting for the mourner. So since he came, so you got to do it. So they came out. Enough at my time. But what was the reason those didn't go out? They had another brisa that says just forget Tanya. Well, then the brisa that if you have a coffin that goes from place to place, it says just the opposite from before. We do not stand in the line. We were not going to say the blessing of Tanchum Avelim. So that's why it didn't go. So Fredi Gemara, okay, so we have two. Some people follow this brisa and some people follow the other brisa. Fredi Gemara Kashian Ahadodi, but these two conflicting brises are contradictory. They question on one another. Do you go or not? The Gemara says like Kashi, it's not a question because Kan Sheshilde Kayemis. If you have the shelad, that's the skeleton of the body intact, Shelda Zoktrashi Gufe Kayemis, his body is intact, Yetzim, then you go out. Kan, the other brisa that it says that you don't go out, B'She'en Shilda Kayemis, we're talking about the skeleton is not in existence, so therefore there's no reason to go out. So, the Gemara says, so why did the rabbis go out? But Rav Huna Shilda Kayemis Rav Huna's frame was there, his shalad was there. The loy nofak, loy samug, and the ones that did not go out, because they didn't conclude for them, they never told him, loy samug kamei, the shilda have a kayemes. They never concluded that his skeleton was in existence. So he thought he doesn't have to go up, because if there's no shalad, you don't go out. But the truth is that it was there and they needed to go out. So now the question was, where do we bury him? Amri, so they said, Heichi Ninche. Where should we put him down? Where should we place him? So they had the burial place of Rabbi Chaim. So they said that Rabbi Huna Ribetz Torah Yisrael. Rabbi Huna disseminated, taught Torah by the Yidden. Rashi. Rabbi Huna Ribetz Torah. Where do we find this? Kedamrin on Beperik. Shnei Dayoni Gezeres. In Ksubas Daf Kuvova Medal, the Gemara says there, Ki Kaime Rabbona Mikamei. When the rabbis would get up from before Rav Huna, Umenaptzig Limayu, and they would sort of comb down their garments that were sitting there for such a long time. They would cover the daytime, the sun, with the dust. That's how much dust. So you see that there was a lot of students over there, and they were learning a lot. So he was spreading Yiddishkeit. And also, Rabbi Chaim would also publicize Torah amongst the Yidden. What do we find about Rabbi Chaim? So Rashi kidamrin b'mitzia da pehei amid beis, like it says in mitzia hey pehei beis. Over there was a discussion between Rabbi Chia, who was greater, Rav or Chia, and Rabbi Chia said, the other one said, I will make sure. The other one said, if the Torah is forgotten, I'm so smart I can bring it back. And Rabbi Chia said, no, I'll make sure that the Torah is never forgotten, so we don't need you to bring it back. So he says, I'm no avdi leil Torah. I'm going to make for the Torah the loy tishtakach mi Yisrael, so it shouldn't be forgotten. Okay. So therefore, a fitting place for him is Rabbi Chia. So then there was the question, man ma'ile, who's going to bring him in there? Man ma'ile, zok Rashi, mi yelech lachnisu likvura etzel Rabbi Chia. Who is going to be the one who's going to go into, put him into the cave for burial next to Rabbi Chia? Omalu Rab Chago. So said to them Rab Chago, that was one of the rabbis there, Ano ma'al nole. I'll bring him up there. Why do kamte letalmudoi ki havino bar tamni sreishnin? I learned v'lechozili keri means the whole thing that he did over there. Um,
What is that?
I'm trying to find what the exact taich of the word here. 1 second. It's an interesting story what went on over here, but I don't know. Kmate litalmudoi. He established my Talmud while I was 18 years old, before he had, any emission. So that means he was holy. So he says he's going to be the one to put him in there. Okay. So umashmale kamei, and he would teach us halachas before us. I mean, so he was telling the special relationship. The yadi be'ovdei. So he says, I know something that happened over there, telling us about the righteousness of Rav Huna. The yadi be'uvda. I know a fact that the Yom Echad is hapchelated through the tefillin. One day, the strap of the tefillin turned over. What does it mean turned over? The black to the white is hapchelated through the tefillin. Hashachar bifnim, so that the black was on the inside. Because the halacha is we need the black part of the strap to be visible on the outside. By him, it turned around, and the white side turned on. Whether he means by the tefillin shel rosh or the tefillin shall yad at the top, or the rituals later on. It's a whole debate, but the bottom line was, so this was almost a trivial thing that the ritua passed, flipped around. Yosef alo arboin tanisa. He sat 40 fast days for this failure. You imagine, because the tefillin turned around, he fasted 40 days.
That must be why the when you buy new Ritsuyo now, they're black on both sides.
Yeah, it's not quite black on both sides. It's black on one side, the other side is also the new tefillin. Anyways, Eilit. So this Rab Chago, who gave us the whole advantage of Rav Huna, he brought him in. Havigoni, so the Gemara says Havigoni Yehuda. He had two sons, one Yehuda, one Cheskia. So Yehuda was laying Mimine Da'abe on the right hand side from his father, on his, and Rav Chi is right hand. The Cheskia Mismole, and Cheskia on the left hand. Amale Yehuda lecheskia. So Yehuda says to his brother Cheskia, Kum me duchtech. Get up from your place. He wanted it to make space for Rav Huna. He says, get up from your place. The lava edechara, it's not respectful to call him Rav Huna, that Rav Huna should be standing. I guess didn't have a burial place. So why is Yehuda saying it to Cheskia? So so why is he saying, so who got up? I guess they wanted to make place for him. Okay, so Yehuda said to Cheskia, so Ba'ad the Koyim, as he was getting up, that was Rabbi. That was, I guess, I don't know. He says Rabbi Yehuda was getting up. I'm not sure why did Yehuda tell Cheskia to get up. Why didn't he get up himself? But maybe they were both needed to get up to make the space over there. So Yehuda was saying to Cheskia, get up, and he was going to go too. But as he was getting up, Kamba de Amuda de Nora, a pillar of fire went up together with Yehuda. Chazir Rav Chag saw it. Ives, he got frightened. Ives, Rashi, Ives, Univchat. So Zokfalaroine, so he stood up the ark. I think he was supposed to lay it down. He stood it up. And Nofak also, and he went out and he came. So basically, they didn't have to make space. So he buried him while he's standing versus lying down. Or b'haide loy I anish. Mishum. Zakvularoin de Rav Ashi.
He was buried standing up.
Well, I'm sorry?
He was buried standing up.
Yeah. So, but that's not the way they were supposed to bury lying down. So he says, I don't know how the box holds it or whatever. I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, we learned this. This is a halacha about burying it, standing up, lying down. And they had the various different ways they would cut out these caves, and they'd put the family members in the caves in the different spots over there. Zakvila Reina de Ravuna Lekamei Amude de Nora the Leiliskis. The Gemara is going to say the story in a minute. Let's see that. soon. He says over here, later said that he was saved from the pillar of fire that came out, I guess, from Rabbi Yehuda, was just because he raised the Aron to separate between them, so the fire couldn't get to him. He put the forerunner of the fire because Rabbi Yehuda's, I guess, the fire that was there was going to consume him, and the reason he was saved from the fire was because he put it. That's what Rashi says. Why wasn't he punished by that fire? Because he stood up the Aron of Chizda to between them. Not the Nura. Not the Kameh later on. It means that I read the Rashi wrong. Zakfil Reina, that Rav Huna Lekame Amuda, he put the coffin of Rav Huna in front of the pillar for the fire, Amuda Nura, the Leiliski, so he shouldn't get damaged. So he wasn't hurt by that fire, and he left him like that. Then the Gemara says a similar story. Kinoch Nafshi de Rav Chizda. When Rav Chizda died, passed away, Sover Lasuvit Sefer Torah Puria. They thought to put a Sefer Torah on his bed, just like they wanted to do it by Rav Huna, Amalu Rabbi Yitzchak. So Rabbi Yitzchak says to them, Milsa de la Rabbi Leishvirelei, something which his teacher, because he says that you're not allowed to sit with a Sefer Torah next to you on the same chair. The Gemara told about Rav Huna earlier. So that's something that his teacher Rav Huna did Leishvirelei. Anon Nakum Navid Lei, so we should get up and do it for Chiz himself. Sover the Loy LimishlalKaraayu. They thought that they weren't going to sew up. They did the Kriya not to sew it together. Amar Lahu Rabbi Yitzchak, Banami, so this is what I said to them. Chocham, by a sage, Kivon Shechziru, Pnei Machure Hamito, Shelulim. As soon as they turned their faces from the back of the bed, in other words, they dropped it off, then Sholulin means that you can go ahead and stitch it together. So you don't have to leave it like that. Further, the Gemara tells a story, when both these two sages, Rabbi Barahuna and Rav Hamnuna, and they died, and they lived in Babel, Askinu Lahasam. They brought him up over there. Next page. This is on 25. The Kimoto Agishra. So now they have two coffins. Now they came to the bridge. That bridge. There was a panel that was leaving, and it was narrow, so they can't go together. They would come together. So one has to make room for the other. They were carrying them the coffins on camels. And like this, they were going together, parallel to each other. But this way, they were going over a narrow bridge. Who's going to make one room for whom? So the Gemara says, Kimoto Agishra. When they came to go over a bridge, a sheet of a narrow bridge, they can't go over one next to each other, only one to the other. Komu Gamali, the camel stopped, didn't go. Komu Gamali, Zokt Rashi, the camels that were carrying the coffins, they stopped. Those who carried the bed, and they stopped in their place. Amar lahu ha'utayir. The merchant, Tayir Zasochir Ishmaelim, says, my high. Uh, so he says, Rabbonon de Shichvi, Rabba Barabhun Rabbanon, those rabbis that were laying to rest Rabba Barabhuna, Rabba Nuna, they were leading them on the camels. So that merchant, Yishmael merchant says, my high, what's going on? Why did the camel stop? Amrulais, Rabbonon, so the Rabbonon said to that merchant, they're giving honor one another. Nobody wants to go in front of the other one. Avdi Yikara, the whole boy high, Lemail Mekame high. This one doesn't want that the other one should go be. He doesn't want to go in front of the other one. Nobody wants to be the first one to go. Each one is giving respect to the next one. Mar Omar one, this one says Mar Neil Beresha, you go up first. Mar Omar, he says Mar Neil, you go up first. Omar, he says that merchant says, do you know who the Rabba Barahuna Leil Beresha? The locha is that Rabba Barahuna should be first. He ruled like that. So the Gemara says, Choliv Gamle the Rabba Barahuna. So Rabba Barahuna's camel went. And the Gemara says, Nostur Kochia Vishine Dahutaya. So the cheeks and the stones of that, and the teeth, the cheek and the teeth of that merchant, they fell out. Because Rashi Nothur Kochi Lechoyov, his cheeks, Meshum, the Bazil Rabbi Hamnuna, because he insulted Rabbi Hamnuna. He told the other one to go first, so he was insulted. So now they're doing the eulogies over there. So finally they're doing it. So there was a young child who was not a young child, but he was called a Yenuka. He's a wise. He quotes the pasuk of Geza Yishishim Olam Mibavel, a root from the elders that comes up from Babel. V'imoi Sefer Mil Chames, and together with him is a book of war. It means a lot of Torah. Rashi says Sefer Mil Chames. It's all part of the pasuk. Sefer Mil Chames means Sefer Torah. That means the Sefer Torah, Sefer Mil Chames. Lishne Achrina. What was the war here? Because another language, Shenilcham Rabba Barabhuna, they were waging war. Who should go first? And the cheeks of the other one fell out. That's another pshat. Why we call it Milchamas. Lishnachrina, another Geza Yishishim, a root of older Rabba Barabhuna. So Rabba Barabhuna, Luben Gedolim. He was the son of the great veneration Rav Huna, Duresh Goylom. Rav Huna was the head of the exile. V'odif Menosi Eretz Yisrael. And he was even greater than the leader of Eretz Yisrael. And the Imoy, along with him, went Sefer Milchames, which means that is the one who wages war, which is Rav Hamnuna. So in either way, so he said, comes up a Geza Yishishim, one of the three interpretations. Cause the Kipud Hukpelu. Cause the Kipud, meaning it's like a curse, have been doubled. Curses and double curses cause v'kipud. It almost sounds like chaos. Cause and kipud have been doubled. It's the lashon of the pasuk there. Lirois b'shoit v'shever abomeshina, to see on the robbery and the breakage that's coming from Babylonia, from Iraq. Lirois shoit v'shever zeh shekotzav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Elomei, this is when Hashem got angry on his world, is the Shoy Shever comes from Shinar. I'm not sure if he's referring to when the Jewish people made the Tower of Babylonia. That was in Shinar over there, where Hashem got angry at the world. So he calls it the Shoy Shever that comes from Shinar, referencing that story of the Pasuk. But he says, Kotzaf alei lomes v'chomas v'menor nefoshes. He got angry on his world and he robbed souls. I mean, he took away souls from them. V'samach b'hem kekala chadosha. He rejoiced in them like somebody marrying a new bride. Roichev arovis soz v'sameach. The one who writes in the arovis is happy and rejoicing. Bevoyelov nefesh noki v'tzadik, when the soul of a noki v'tzadik, a clean and righteous, comes to him. So the Rechev Arovis, which is a name of Hashem, is rejoicing. So this is what the Yinuka just brought down this pasuk. I guess the Eibishter is happy when these nefesh, the tzaddikim, the two tzaddikim, they came to him. And that is referencing their passing. All right, we'll leave it over here. We'll call it a day over here. Wish everybody a good week, a good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We should hear only good news for everybody. Klal Yisrael. See everybody next week.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Close here.